Well, Bart, the 1,800-pound bear who co-stars with Anthony Hopkins and Alec Baldwin in the movie The Edge, reportedly earns a whopping $10,000 per day as a Hollywood actor. A small amount of the Grizzly's income goes toward the preservation of bears' natural habitat. Bart spends the remaining money on bear and cocaine.
There are actors whose very presence on set can be more than a little intimidating, whether it's because their reputation precedes them or because they are known for being difficult to work with. There are many acclaimed thespians that have given their co-stars more than a little pause. However, there is one actor who was both physically intimidating and yet such a constant professional that even Sir Anthony Hopkins praised him immensely. The two worked very closely together on a survival adventure movie, and Hopkins was so enamored with his co-star that he spent much of their free time on set together. The Academy Award-winning Hopkins praised his co-star as a consummate professional, a world-class actor, and one of the best supporting actors he ever worked with. And no, it wasn't Alec Baldwin. It was a 1,500-pound Kodiak bear named Bart. The Edge had Bart in one of his biggest roles to date, playing the film's main antagonist. He and Hopkins shared scene after scene, and both trusted each other and the filmmaking process. It's not hard when both Hopkins and Bart had already had long careers, full of acclaimed performances. Both had even appeared in the same film only 3 years earlier, with Legends of the Fall, though in that film they never shared the screen. The Edge changed that, as both titans of film finally appeared together. For Hopkins, it would be an experience he would never forget. For Bart, it would be one of his last performances, and a final triumph in an industry-changing career. A career that saw this massive Kodiak appear alongside acting greats like Brad Pitt and even the late John Candy. But who was Bart the Bear? Where did he come from? And what legacy did he leave behind?
Wow!
It's hard to separate this generational acting talent from the man who raised him, trained him, gave him a home, and loved him like a child. Doug Seuss is a longtime Hollywood animal trainer and conservationist. Doug and his wife Lynn have dedicated most of their lives to raising and training some of the most dangerous animals on the planet, and they may well be the most successful trainers in Hollywood history. Doug began training animals in the early 70s, but his life changed forever in 1977. Doug and Lynn were already known for their success wrangling wolves for Hollywood productions, but bears were another story. Bart, as Lynn Seuss puts it, was an unplanned pregnancy. The Baltimore Zoo had a sudden problem on their hands when one of their adult grizzlies unexpectedly gave birth. With no space or facilities to care for the new cub, they reached out to various animal trainers and sanctuaries. That's when Doug first met the animal that would change his life. When he first arrived at Doug's home, Bart was only 5 pounds. The trainer quickly got to work raising and caring for the new cub. He developed an incredible bond with the quickly growing Kodiak, and the two gained a deep trust. Given that Bart eventually reached a staggering 1,500 pounds and a standing height of 9.5 feet tall, it was an important trust to develop. If Bart ever felt distrust or anxiety towards Doug Seuss, he could have easily killed the man with barely any effort. Given this knowledge, Doug knew it was clearly a trust and respect that went both ways.
Hello, my name is Doug Seuss, and this is my lifelong friend and companion, Bart. No.
It didn't take long for Bart to make his big screen debut. At only 2.5 years old, Bart landed his first acting gig in 1980. Windwalker was a western that told the story of a titularly named elderly Cheyenne warrior and his family. At one point in the film, the youngest member of the family is attacked by a vicious bear, just before Windwalker himself slays the animal in a fight. For Bart's appearance on screen, it was a showstopper, and one that clearly demonstrated both the bear's acting talent and sheer physical presence. Ironically, it was also the smallest Bart would ever look on screen, as he was still adolescent. This was also the kind of role that would be Bart's bread and butter over the next few decades. For his first couple of features, he would appear for a scene or two, menace the hero, and then retire back to his trailer for treats and hugs from Doug.
Get off!
Very early on, Bart's impressive range and gentle temperament endeared him to the actors and directors he worked with. Many who worked with Bart remarked that when the camera was off, he was gentle, quiet, attentive, and otherwise good-natured. However, when action was called, Bart would put on a great mean face. Doug Seuss had patiently and expertly trained Bart to roar, stand, and otherwise act intimidating as hell on command. Here was a rare thing for a filmmaker, a massive and potentially dangerous animal that could safely share space with top-billed cast, and look terrifying doing it. His next few appearances in the early 80s saw Bart working alongside icons of the time, like Kenny Rogers, and even other famous animal icon, Benji. In Clan of the Cave Bear, a movie set in the Stone Age, Bart's showdown with a group of Neanderthals is an impressive and dangerous looking scene. Actual stuntmen and actors grappled with Bart on set, with the nearly 1,500-pound Grizzley wrestling with various people, throwing their bodies onto his. With a less patient, or dare I say, less professional animal actor, there could have been serious injuries. Not with Bart, who was a true professional. Bart had long become comfortable grappling and wrestling with humans thanks to Doug's tireless work. The massive animal had no problem understanding just how much pressure and power to use without crushing the skulls of his co-stars. That's a talent that even some human actors fail to develop. Just see our Klaus Kinski vid, for example. These small roles quickly made Bart a rising star in Hollywood, and soon Doug and his adopted bear were in demand. He even got to appear in a rare comedy when he menaced John Candy in the iconic film, The Great Outdoors.
Oh, right in the...
Still, despite his talent and screen presence, Bart was still just a scary bear to the movie-going public. That changed when 1988 rolled around and Bart finally made the jump from featured player to leading man. The Bear is a 1988 film about an Italian man running a restaurant. No, wait, that's another thing entirely. Actually, it was a French-language film that featured Bart in the title role. The movie featured little dialogue with a minimal human cast. Instead of focusing on the people being menaced by Bart, the movie was about the bear himself. In the film, Bart plays an adult Kodiak bear who adopts an orphaned grizzly cub. Together, they outwit and outfight a pair of hunters who have their sights set on the animals. This was Bart's movie, and he and the cub have the majority of the screen time. It was a far bigger role than Bart had taken on before. With his other parts, Bart had to only spend 1 or 2 days on set, being asked to perform relatively straightforward actions like roaring or swiping. Here, Bart had to spend a long production schedule filming various scenes alongside his young co-stars Duce and Yoop, who played the cub. His performance was also aided by advanced animatronics crafted by the Jim Henson Company, who based their design on Bart's physically imposing stature. However, there was still a lot of work for Bart to do. The movie was being filmed in the Italian Alps, which were serving as a stand-in for rural British Columbia, which meant Bart had to spend a lot of time away from home. To help with this, Doug and 2 other trainers worked closely with Bart, making sure he didn't feel the stress of the production. Something did go wrong, however, and in a rare instance, Bart ended up hurting one of his co-workers. While taking some production and promotional photographs with the film's director Jean-Jacques Annaud, Bart ended up clawing his back and throwing him to the ground. Though it was a quick moment, it left a deep wound that required advanced medical treatment. Annaud ended up having to finish the film while surgical shunts were attached to the large healing gash on his back. Still, the director harbored no ill will to Bart and finished filming The Bear in Italy with him. He later stated that he believed that Bart was one of the best actors he ever worked with, dubbing him the John Wayne of bears. The movie's most iconic scene is one that encapsulates Bart's immense film presence, He confronts the hunter who has been menacing him the whole film. Played by storied actor Teki Cario, the hunter cowers as the massive and terrifying bear finally has him at his mercy. Bart towers over the man, charges him, kicks dirt at him, and roars ferociously inches from the hunter's face. He then shows pity and leaves peacefully. It's the kind of scene that only Bart could have pulled off, not only because of his sheer physical size, but also in how Bart was able to shift his entire demeanor and body language on a dime. His performance sold the film's climax, and made the moment where he shows mercy on the man hunting him believable. This scene alone is one of Bart's greatest acting achievements, and an all-time masterwork of animal acting. Once it was released, The Bear received high acclaim. The film was praised for its extensive animal cast, including the various bear cubs, dogs, and even cougars that drove the story. The movie was also praised for taking a creature more often shown as a dangerous killer, and instead treating them as a nuanced and emotional being. Roger Ebert praised the movie for not dumbing down its themes into a digestible kids film, but rather allowing the animal actors to shine as believable characters.
And that's what's so convincing about it. When you watch the film, you really feel like you're eavesdropping on these bears.
In fact, Bart's performance was so praised that there was a massive write-in campaign to have him nominated for an Oscar. The 65th Annual Academy Awards were bombarded with requests to adjust the rules so that the animal performer could be nominated alongside his human counterparts. The Academy didn't budge on the rules, and Bart's performance went unrewarded, though the Academy would come to regret that decision, and Bart would get his chance once again. Though before we get to that, we need to talk more about his legendary career. After the success of The Bear, Bart went back to his usual type of role. He menaced people on screen in various productions, such as the Richard Kiel starring The Giant of Thunder Mountain. These productions kept him stateside and close to his home in Utah. In 1990, he, or more accurately his trainers Doug and Lynn Seuss, had saved up a substantial sum of money from his various roles. While Doug and Lynn had planned to save the money for retirement, their concern for the dwindling grizzly population led them to a different use. Together they started Vital Ground, using the money to purchase a large tract of land in Utah. There they founded a grizzly preserve, from which they could educate the public on how the fearsome-looking animals were intelligent, sensitive, and ultimately deserving of respect and preservation. Bart became a mascot for the organization. His calm temperament and kind demeanor made him the perfect figure to help raise money and be an ambassador to the public. Since 1990, Vital Ground has grown into a massive endeavor that has helped protect large swaths of the grizzly's natural habitat, and its work continues to this day.
That was the start of Vital Ground. It started with 240 acres. It's now over 650,000.
Bart's work was also far from over, and the 1990s would see his star rise even further. He appeared in Disney's iconic Homeward Bound: The Legendary Journey, as well as its sequel. He menaced Steven Seagal in On Deadly Ground, stalked around a post-apocalyptic New York in 12 Monkeys, and then worked on another Brad Pitt film only a few years later, when he kills Pitt's character at the end of Legends of the Fall. Spoiler alert, by the way. He even once again played the titular character in Walking Thunder. There he shared the screen with legendary singer-songwriter John Denver, who passed away 2 years later in a plane crash. When 1997 rolled around, Bart had one more big role to play, and this time it would be a capstone to his whole career.
Say it!
I'm gonna kill the bear.
Say it again!
I'm gonna kill the bear.
And again! I'm gonna kill the bear!
The Edge was a survival thriller that starred Anthony Hopkins and Alec Baldwin. The movie sees their characters, a survival-obsessed millionaire and a fashion photographer, trapped in the Alaskan wilderness. Together they exit stage left, pursued by a bear. Bart played the central antagonist of the film, a massive grizzly that hunts the pair across the barren wilderness. Hopkins and Bart shared a lot of screen time together, with both man and animal having to engage each other in mock combat. Hopkins was enamored with his co-star, and would reportedly spend his free time on set interacting with and just staring at the massive animal. He often talked about how impressed and awestruck he was with both Bart's natural beauty as well as his calm and peaceful demeanor. He respected Bart as a fellow actor, and insisted on doing as many scenes as possible directly with the bear. Alec Baldwin also reportedly found Bart to be sweet and of a kind temperament. In fact, he even doubted the movie would work in the end, because he thought it would be hard for audiences to find the 1,500-pound Kodiak scary. They did, and once again Bart's performance was praised. The film itself received mixed reviews, but one thing everyone agreed on was that Bart frickin' nailed it. Also in a major honor, Bart received top billing. Sort of. The first credit scene after the film ends is an explicit thank you to both Bart and Doug for their work on the movie.
Fortunate, my career has brought me in contact with Doug and Lynn Seuss and their grizzly bear, Bart.
It was once again a standout performance from one of cinema's most unique actors, and it's remembered as a glorious send-off for an animal that changed how bears are seen on screen. Unfortunately, his real final performance would be the following year in Meet the Deedles, but no one remembers that movie, so we'll forget it too. Wait, is that Paul Walker? His last major public appearance came when he finally got the recognition he so deserved. While presenting the Oscar for Best Sound Editing at the 70th Annual Academy Awards, presenter Mike Myers surprised the world. In a moment meant to honor the animal performances that have changed cinema, Myers introduced Bart on stage. The bear was applauded by his peers, and presented an oversized envelope declaring Titanic the winner of that Oscar. It was a moment that honored Bart and his long career, as well as Doug's tireless work in building a relationship with a potentially dangerous animal. In front of a television audience of millions, Bart hugged Doug to massive applause. Sadly, in 1998, while playing with Bart, Doug Seuss noticed a large lump developing on Bart's wrist. When he had it biopsied, it was revealed that Bart had cancer. Doug and Lynn worked closely with veterinarians, and they managed to help Bart live an additional year and a half. However, in a moment of terrible grief, Doug and Lynn had to make the choice to end Bart's suffering. On May 10th, 2000, Bart was euthanized while surrounded by his family and loved ones. Bart's groundbreaking career changed the way animals were shown on screen, and set the standard for ursine acting. His legacy continued after his death, with Bart 2, or Little Bart, taking up the mantle. Today, because of his acting work, Vital Ground has managed to help America's grizzly population recover, with the organization purchasing even more land to turn into untouched nature preserves. His performance in films like The Bear and The Edge also live on, with multiple of his works becoming cult films and cinematic classics. So we here at Cinema Snobs honor you, Bart the Bear, for all your acting talent and unforgettable performances. What do you think of Bart the Bear and his career? Are there any other animal actors who don't get enough recognition? Leave a comment below and don't forget to like and subscribe to Cinema Snobs. Thanks for watching.